Welcome everybody to my channel, Ascend Above. My name is Austin, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the astrology from September 12th until the 17th. So thank you all for being here. We're actually just going to go ahead and jump straight in here. Now, the key transits for the week is going to be this new moon in Virgo. We have Mercury coming direct, and then we also have the sun making a trine to Uranus. And then by the end of the week on the 17th, we'll be having Venus square Jupiter. Now, I just want to backtrack real quick to this new moon in Virgo that we're having, because the contents inherited for this new moon are important. We're going to be having this new moon make a trine to Uranus. We're going to be having, during this new moon, Mars starting to make its sextile to Venus. And we're going to be having Venus square Jupiter too. So I've already kind of said Venus square Jupiter, but that'll be more exact, throughout the week or later down the week. But what's really going on here with this new moon in Virgo, the start to this new lunation cycle, is we're breaking out of convention. We're breaking out of the old ways of doing things. And there's this natural, spontaneous urge and impulse that we all can sort of feel, and it's natural. It's natural timing for us to be like, oh, okay, it's time to get a little bit innovative here. It's time to change some things. It's time to break out of my own shell of my own limitations and what I thought was possible. And it's time for me to pivot. And Mars making that sextile to Venus is giving us the creativity that we all need to address some of the issues that we've been having. All these planets in retrograde. Mercury in retrograde, that's been in retrograde. Now Mercury will come direct shortly after this new moon in Virgo. But the creativity that is being offered to us with Mars and Venus making a sextile is what's going to allow us to find new solutions to problems, right? Or just to get creative and find newer ways of doing things, right? If you think about Uranus rules the genius. Think about the Fool card, right? The Fool archetype has this sort of genius about himself. Now, we all know the shadow side of the Fool card is like actually being a literal fool. But sometimes the Fool card has this inner genius about itself. And if you think about the Fool, it's actually the start, the first card of the major arcanas of the tarot. And so it represents that cosmic egg of creative potential that can be harnessed. And we are definitely doing that. Yes, there's a lot of planets retrograde, 5 planets retrograde. When Mercury comes direct, there will still be 5 planets retrograde. But some things are actually starting to move forward. We just have Venus come direct. Now we got Mercury coming direct. And so the intra-Saturnian planets are all direct now. Besides Saturn, right? But everything, Saturn and everything outside of Saturn is still retrograde. So there's still like this urge to find this self-transcendence, like this higher purpose and reasoning and understanding of figuring out like what's going on in the world, where does my duty fall in the world, or where's my place at specifically in the world, like where do I stand in all this? And you can start to question a lot, like what's the point? And I think it's important to keep faith during this lunation cycle, because we'll be having Venus square Jupiter. And so we may not be seeing the fruits from our labors fast enough, right? Because anytime Venus squares Jupiter, it can bring this overinflated expectation. Yes, it can bring like the grandiose energy that Jupiter brings, or the optimistic or positive energy. However, sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way you expected, right? Or you don't get as much as you thought, right? But that shouldn't stop you. It should motivate you to work harder, right? And still, with the sun being in Virgo, it's about staying the course, being methodical, being patient, and having sufficient perseverance and finding newer ways to be productive and staying productive. And it's through that process of the sufficient perseverance that we'll get our fruits from our labors. So that's just one thing I wanted to touch on before we actually jump into the actual charts here. And we'll go through all the transits for the week. But, I want to point out the key transits here. And I think it's also too important to yes, Mars is making that sextile to Venus, Mars in Libra. But however, Mars is still in the South Node, right? And the South Node can offer us room, the South Node can offer us, offers us this understanding of where we can improve. And what we can improve on is our relationships, figuring out why things are not balanced in our life, why we don't really feel the harmony, or why there's certain things that seem unfair, or why there is unfairness. And so this can manifest itself as, honestly, I believe with this North Node in Aries, I think it's time that we stop making excuses for ourselves and for our relationships, because sometimes keeping the peace is necessary, but we shouldn't keep the peace to the point to where it becomes detrimental, right? Like if we're just walking on eggshells because we want to keep the peace, well, that's not doing us any good in our lives. And so that North Node in Aries is trying to show us it's okay to stand up for ourselves. It's okay to be bold. It's okay to be courageous, and it's okay to take the initiative to disrupt an unequal equilibrium, right? Because if things are unequal, we shouldn't just go with the flow. And you know what I mean? It's time to take action in the initiative and put yourself first, or do what it is that you need to do, so that way you can start to bring things back into a harmonistic balance, right? And feel that sense of freedom. And so, that may start with stopping making excuses for yourself, right? If you keep on repeating the same destructive behavior, hey, there's some things that I've been wanting to change, some habits that I've been wanting to break. And I feel like, this new moon is definitely a perfect time to do so. This also can manifest in your relationships. Like I said, stop making excuses for other people. Don't let other people hold you back, right? So I think it's time to focus personally on ourselves, in my humble opinion, and also from what I'm seeing from the astrology. So let's jump into the actual charts now, and let's take a look. So we're going to be starting off here on the 12th, and let me just kind of pull this up for you all. Here we go. So we're starting off here on the 12th, and then we have Moon square Uranus. Now, as I'm doing this video right now, Moon is square Uranus. In fact, I had to restart this video because I couldn't find my epic pen. And basically, an epic pen is basically this thing right here, right? It allows me to draw on the screen. For some reason, it wasn't on. It didn't get deleted, but it was just totally out of the dock on my Mac. And I was like, oh, that's a Moon square Uranus. It's just unpredictable things happening that that you wouldn't expect, right? I'm like, that's the last thing that I would expect that I would have to figure out and find out, right? And that's definitely Moon square Uranus. And so whenever you're watching this video, by the time I upload this video, this transit may have already happened, so you can probably just reflect back. Was there something spontaneously that happened that was unexpected with this moon making its square to Uranus? It could really be anything, right? Sometimes it's maybe even your own behavior. Sometimes you're like, wow, that was kind of impulsive, or maybe something externally may have happened. And so it's just something that you just can't account for. Uranus is the sudden unpredictable, right? So let's actually just go to the next one, because by the time I upload this will already have happened. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. September, we go to the next day. That's pretty much it for the transits that are going on for the 12th, September 13th, here we go. And this will be Wednesday. We have the moon that will be entering into Virgo at 12:18 Central Time. Now, I live in Texas, so I'll use Central Time. You just have to translate it to your time zone, wherever you live, whatever the case, wherever you live, or, it only takes a few seconds to figure it out. If you don't know, it just takes a quick Google search. So moon coming into Virgo here. We're getting close to this new moon. However, it's not there yet. We're in a balsamic moon period with this moon coming into Virgo, a dark moon here. And so we're gearing up and preparing ourselves for this new moon. We're really highly aware of the new seeds that we're wanting to plant. However, it's almost like it's not time to plant them yet. But it's definitely like we're definitely aware of the future, but there's still probably a sliver of things that we're trying to maybe figure out here. And, the energy is basically has waned all the way down here. So with this moon ingressing into Virgo, it's almost like this, I feel here with the balsamic moon, it's like we're starting to become introspective here about where is it that we can self-improve, and where is it that we can make the necessary adjustments for ourselves to refine things, to make things better here. And so, that's pretty much straight to the point. Let's just go to the next transit. But that moon in Virgo in this balsamic period, dark moon period, is really us just making adjustments and getting ready for this new moon. All right, shortly later we have this, and actually I want to pull something else up really quick. All right, there it goes. So shortly after here we have the moon opposed Saturn. All right, this will be at 5:30 a.m. Central Time, so you just have to translate it to your time zone. Moon opposed Saturn, there's a block here, right? Anytime there's an opposition to Saturn, it's kind of like a timeout, the way I see it and the way I've experienced it. It comes as a timeout. And the timeout is happening because, we need to deepen our awareness into the present moment here, because there's more that we need to know and understand. And the only way to know and understand is to deepen your awareness and allow yourself to become more self-aware, right? With Saturn being in Pisces. Because the moon in Virgo is like, yes, we feel, like we want to get our ducks in a row, and we want to start to put things in order, and we want to start to figure things out. However, Saturn's like, hold on, we may not have the answer right now. And so in order for us to get the answers, we need to deepen our awareness and become self-aware, right? To allow ourselves to become introspective and reflective, to see what arises, to see what answers we could get. Because Pisces teaches Virgo, to let go for one. Because sometimes it's through letting go and going with the flow, you discover newer things. You start to become a little bit self-aware of emotional blocks with the moon, right? So that's the best way I see this transit here. And I've experienced the transit. So just take a moment to be reflective, right? Take a moment to be reflective. We're not here yet. We're not at the new moon yet. So just take a moment to be reflective, right? That there's actually magic and simplicity. And the simplicity is, just, what I feel is the simplicity is, and the magic that can be found here is just through the process of becoming more self-aware and allowing yourself to not be so rigid and to be more flexible with that. All right. Later on this day, on the 13th, we have Moon conjunct Mercury. And this is quite just a weird energy in general. I mean, we're still in this balsamic moon phase, and Mercury's still retrograde, but it's stopped. It's pretty much stationed, about to come direct here pretty soon. And so there's like this, very much like this inner dialogue that you'll be having with yourself, or that we'll be having with ourselves. And more so of this intuitive thinking, and I would say it could bring a balance of the rational and intuitive thinking. But you're definitely going to be thinking more emotionally, I would say, about things and about the way you feel about things, and starting to question things, and starting to see what it is that you can do to allow yourself to make the necessary proper adjustments. And so there's not really much to say about that, because it's not, Mercury and the moon are kind of indifferent to one another. I believe they're actually neutral when it comes to the relationship. It's like a neutral relationship. And so, when anything's neutral, it can kind of be either or, right? It can be either or. We can be maybe too much Mercury about the way that we're feeling, or we can be too rational about what it is that we're feeling, or we can be too emotional about the way that we're thinking, or about what we're thinking, right? So it's about finding that delicate balance with these two. All right, here we go. Moving on to the next day, September 14th, we'll have the moon trine Jupiter, and that will be at 7:27 a.m. Central Time. And this is going to be great, actually. I like the energy anytime there's a trine to Jupiter with the moon, because it really does bring in that benefic energy that Jupiter has to offer. And so there is this energy of positivity here, and optimism that we'll be feeling. So an increase of optimism and positivity and faith here. And I think it's perfect, because this is actually the last transit that we'll have during this balsamic moon phase as we come into the new moon. And this is like sort of showing us like, okay, let's actually look forward to the future. Because if you think about Jupiter, well, Jupiter is about growth, expansion. It's about going outward. And so it's like that's the symbolism is looking forward, looking outward. Becoming a bit lofty with our vision, like lofty in a good way though. Lofty in the way of like what is possible in regards to the Taurus stuff, right? What is possible? I actually feel like I can be prosperous, or I'm feeling like this increase of optimism and positivity around the future. Right now, Jupiter is retrograde, and Jupiter retrograde, we can have these weird fluctuations of where we start to lose faith. And so the thing with Jupiter retrograde is like to still stay dedicated and remain faithful to the things in your life that you are wanting to grow and expand, right? Regardless of if you're not seeing things happen as you would like. But I think this is showing us like, you know what? This is okay. All right, my friends, let's go here to the next transit for the day. We have this new moon finally that is starting in Virgo. And here we go. We're starting a new cosmic brew here with a new lunation cycle. And like I said, let's just back up for a moment. This new moon in Virgo will be at 8:39 p.m. Central Time. And if you take a look here, it is making that trine, like I said in the beginning of the video, to Uranus, right? And so the contents that are going to be inherited at birth, right? Because the sun and the moon come together to birth a new cycle. So the contents that are here at the specific point of this new moon, we have a trine to Uranus, which I said is to break out of convention, to break out of our shells, to break out of our limitations, and to awaken our inner genius, I guess you could say metaphorically, and allow for spontaneity to flow through. So that way we can pivot and find newer solutions to possibly the old problems that we've been facing, or possibly the problems that we have been facing in general, right? And the one thing that can help problem solving is creativity. And it's excellent because Mars is starting to make that sextile. Now, this may look like a 3-degree orb, right? Because Mars is at 11 and Venus is at 14, but it's actually about 2.5-degree orb. And so if it was a 3-degree orb, I probably wouldn't have counted it for the contents inherited, but I did anyways, because I was like, you know what, that's very close enough, and it's actually going to play a key role, I feel, because you know Mars and Venus obviously have a special relationship, and they are the dyad of creativity, all forms of creativity. And so we can tap into this creativity to bring newer solutions, or just to use our creativity in general to address things and do things and figure things out. Now, Mars is, though, in the South Node in Libra, so it's almost like we could be figuring out like old issues that have been needing to be resolved and figured out. And there's always room for improvement with Mars in the South Node. So we're constantly going to be redefining and improving Libra things. But we're doing this so that we can tap into the North Node in Aries energy. We're doing this so we can actually learn how to be more self-reliant, be more self-independent, to understand our own strength and our own power. But if there's things in your life that are holding you back, whether that's partnerships, relationships, or just things that you're possibly doing individually, then this is that time to, where we can, where we have to stop making excuses. Otherwise, we're just going to keep repeating the same patterns. So, yeah, then also too, if you take a look here, we got Venus down here making a square to Jupiter, right? And it's interesting that Venus is right here with Juno too. But this Venus square Jupiter can bring an overinflated sense of optimism when it comes to the things that we are wanting and desiring and wanting to create. And sometimes it doesn't really turn out the way we wanted it to. Or maybe we overdo some things here. And so there's a need to understand patience and be realistic. Yes, it's great to have optimism and positivity and to feel that sense of expansion. However, are we being realistic? Venus square Jupiter is like when you can spend too much. Like for an example, I'll give you an example. Like Venus square Jupiter is when you can spend too much money. You're like, oh shit, I shouldn't spend all that money. Or that was probably a bad investment. Oh damn, I didn't think that through. Or Venus square Jupiter can be like we're expecting to receive something and it doesn't really, it's almost like you still get something. Because I love Venus squares for the fact that they're not really that bad. That's like Venus square Saturn. But, they still kind of suck, but like, you get what I'm saying. But it's like you may not get or receive as much as you wanted, but that's what I'm saying. It's like realistically, because at the root of disappointment is expectations. And that's a brilliant thing I've heard. I can't remember who said it, but I was like, that stuck with me for a very long time because it's absolutely 100% true. All right, my friends, let's keep it going here. Moon trine Uranus. You can see that moon at 22 degrees here, making that trine to Uranus, 22 degrees Taurus. And here we go. Not only that, this is shortly after the new moon that just happened, right? So this is about 2 hours later, 10:37 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be getting this, moon trine Uranus is kind of like the spontaneity, perfect alignment of synchronicity that sort of happens. And what Uranus is doing actually is stimulating and bringing in like a stimulation of unconscious energy that we feel, right? To break out of convention, to do things differently, or to find a newer, slightly different way of doing things that makes things easier, or that allows us to be able to improve things. So I love moon trine Uranus energy because it feels very much like electric. You ever like drink too much coffee? Well, like moon square Uranus would be like when you drink too much coffee and you're all fluttery and shit. Like you're like, oh my God, like my heart's racing and like I have anxiety and I'm nervous. Well, moon trine Uranus is like when that coffee hits perfect. You got the energy, you got the good vibes going, the endorphins are going. It's like this, very much like this ecstatic energy, right? And so you can probably expect something like that around this time. It's like this intuitive impulse as well. To be this intuitive impulse to do something different, or you'll even stumble across something on accident, but it's like a happy accident in a way. You get what I'm saying? Like you're like, oh, like this happened, and the next thing you know, like this happened, and then yeah, now I feel good, or like, yeah, like this is perfect. So it's always funny doing like a Uranus, it's always funny doing a Uranus, or talking about a Uranus transit, because Uranus is that planet of the unpredictable and the sudden. And even when you're trying to explain it, it's like you can't even really explain it. You just know that it can be sudden, unexpected things. So it's like, it's just one of those things that you just have to conceptually understand for it to like make sense. Because you can't put a pinpoint on Uranus. Like you can't just be like, oh, it's that, right? Like it just doesn't work that way. All right, let's go next here, my friends. September 15th, we have, is this the same day or just the next day? Next day here, September 15th, I believe will be Friday. Yes, it is Friday. We have Moon opposed Neptune at 5:29 a.m. Central Time. And, the more you can let go and go with the flow here, the better. Because anytime you have an opposition to Neptune, confusion is bound to happen, right? And so it's managing as much as you can manage and not beating yourself up if you don't know all the answers or if you can't find the right specific solution, right? I think this is about doing the best that you can do while going with the flow, while going with the flow and sort of letting go a little bit. Because Virgo energy can be very OCD, or it can be very, like it has to be this way and every little thing has to be perfect. And whenever you have the opposition to Neptune, it's like, it's not going to be perfect. In fact, there's this that can be done better. And in fact, that there's this that can be done better. And in fact, things could just be confusing. But this is also too like where we can also work with this energy a bit to bring in some creativity, because Virgo can be dry sometimes. I'm not making fun of Virgo, I'm not, but it's just like Virgo can sometimes be dry and Pisces is wet, right? So I think it's like bringing in creativity, going with the flow, managing as much as you can manage, and don't beat yourself up if you don't have all the answers, or if you if you feel confused, or if you're just like feeling like things are a little bit messy, you know, that's Neptune, and that's definitely Pisces. All right, let's go next, my friends. Let's go to September 15th. We have the moon trine Pluto. Oh yeah. So this is where we can let go and embrace transformation, embrace change, right? Embrace change. What are these weird, especially Capricorn, right? Pluto being in Capricorn. Capricorn rules structures. What are, and especially Pluto being here, is like, you know, letting go of old structures, destroying old structures, and creating new ones, right? And so we can sort of let go of our own limitations here. And we can also follow through on things as well that we've been wanting to follow through with. So, and you know, there's so many different varieties of what transits offer, right? Like as far as like how they can manifest, especially moon transits. But I would say with moon trining Pluto, like it can bring this heightened sense of intensity to where it's like we're geared in emotionally and locked into something emotionally, right? So it could be like this unwavering sense of concentration, or this unwavering sense of determination, right? Because Pluto's like goes deep to the core. It's the digger. So yeah, it's going to be a heavily emotional investment. Now it's a trine, so that it's a harmonious aspect, harmonious energy. And so this, I feel like this will be us really following through on like letting go of these certain particular structures that we no longer need anymore. Whether it's the way you've structurally been doing something, or the way things have structurally manifested in your life, or whatever. So, all right, let's keep it going here. Later on that day, 12:25 p.m. Central Time, we'll be having the moon finally coming into Libra, joining with the South Node and also with Mars. So moon in the South Node is, well, let me just back this up. Moon coming into Libra, we're going to have emotional bias toward equality, fairness, balance, to relationship. And so that's what you can expect here with this while the moon's in Libra. Now, some of you already know that, but you know, others don't. So, and it is with the South Node, so it is more so of anytime I feel the moon is with the South Node, it really brings a more introverted nature, right? Like it's more so like we tend to be introverted. We tend to reflect more. We tend to want to understand more. Like we tend to want to understand, you know, it could be around like, you know, things in our life to where we may be feeling stuck to, or where we're starting to understand like where we don't feel like there's balance and that we need to bring balance back into play. But first we need to address like these old karmic things, or just things that have accumulated in our lives, things that have basically accumulated over time. So that's that moon in Libra. And then shortly after that, Mercury is going to be turning direct. So finally, Mercury is out of Gatorade and is going forward. Mercury's out of retrograde, and that'll be at 3:21 p.m. Central Time. And finally, you know, I don't even think this, to me, this Mercury retrograde didn't even really feel that bad, honestly. I think we've had worse ones because, I mean, already so many planets were in retrograde, right? But also, like, this Mercury retrograde didn't make any bad aspects when it was retrograding, right? It made a trine to Jupiter. It came back and cazimi the sun. So it was really like this purifying process that was a lot more easier than past retrogrades or other retrogrades that we've had. And if there is one sign you would probably want Mercury to retrograde in, it would probably be its home sign, but that could be a hit or miss too. But like I said, I don't think this one was a bad one in my opinion. So Mercury is finally direct. So our intellect can come back online, our minds can start working, and we can start to feel this sense of movement forward, especially when it comes to our thought processes, especially when it comes to communication and there being more clarity. But we have definitely been in like this purifying refinement process when it comes to Mercury. And I would say we still are, but you know, with all these planets retrograde and stuff, but you know, some planets are starting to come direct. We just had Venus not too long ago my bad. We had Venus not that long ago come direct, and now we have Mercury now direct. And so now the intra-Saturnian planets are all direct except for Saturn, right? Saturn's retrograde, and everything outside of Saturn is also retrograde. And so there still is like this trying to really figure out. Well, I think there still is like this wanting to self-transcend, because the triad outside of Saturn deals a lot with self-transcendence, like this urge to want to be greater than oneself, or to connect to something that is greater than oneself. And I think a lot of us at this time have possibly been questioning like our spiritual beliefs, or maybe going deeper into our spiritual practices, or we've been having more questions about things, and we're really just trying to figure out like the higher order and higher nature of things, I would say. And also I forgot Jupiter is retrograde. So Jupiter is actually in is part of the intra-Saturnian planets. So, you know, faith could be lacking quite a bit. That's why Jupiter retrograde is like, it's important to keep your faith and stay dedicated and still keep your morals intact, right? Because when you lose faith, you want to give up, right? Because you don't feel the growth, you don't feel the expansion, you don't feel the positivity, you know. And so, but it's important though to stay the course and to not give up. You know, it's just, we need some patience at this time. All right, so let's go to the next transit, my friends. Sun trine Uranus. Now, like I said, this new moon did trine Uranus, or Uranus, however you want to say it. That's so funny because Uranus has like 4 different ways to say it. It's like, that's definitely a Uranian thing. Like, there's just different. Uranus is just one of those planets. But anyways, so we now have Sun that is making an exact trine to Uranus. And so you'll feel that energy more of like this sense of the spontaneous urge to step outside of your own boundaries and your own limitations and break your own conventional ways of doing things, right? And that's going to allow you to see like, oh, there's so much more that I'm capable of, or there's so much more out there, or there's another way of doing things, or there's another way I could do something that helps, or that allows you to pivot. So, and that'll be at 8:23 p.m. Central Time. All right, let's keep going now. All right, here we go. Moon conjunct Mars. Emotional reactivity. This is when we can be a little bit too reactive. So this is one of those weird things, because the moon and Mars don't really like each other. They don't. And if they're together, well, Mars is frustrated because, you know, think about it, the moon's soft, right? The moon is kind of yielding, and Mars is the maverick. Mars is the initiator. Mars is, let's go, I don't care, I want to take action, I want to do this. And so that's kind of why they differ, right? And so this can manifest as emotional reactivity. So it's important not to allow yourself to get triggered, especially with this energy here in the South Node. It's important not to allow yourself to get triggered with relationships. And not only that, because it's like not to allow yourself to get triggered by the same type of shit, basically. Not to allow yourself to get triggered by the same type of bullshit. However, this is where we can sort of be like, you know what? Nah, fuck this. I'm taking action. I don't care, right? But it's for a good reason, right? And so you really have to think about this energy whenever it comes, right? This is 2:52 p.m. Central Time, and this can bring a highly reactive, emotional state. But nonetheless, it could also be, you can also channel this energy into productive energy, or use it productively too. All right, here we go. Later on the day, on the 16th, we have the moon sextile Venus at 6:57 p.m. Central Time. So, wait, where am I at? Okay, yeah, here we go. Whoops. So the moon making that sextile to Venus, this is just benefic energy that, you know, that Venus is offering the moon here. And Venus being in Leo is, you know, we really do value like creativity. We really do value self-expression. We really do value, you know, what really makes us happy. And, you know, this may manifest itself as, or in the area of your relationships, right? Because, well, Leo can deal with romance, especially when it's Venus. And we all know that Libra can deal with romance, because actually the dispositor of Libra, like the ruling planet of Libra, is Venus, right? So this is just a good, benefic, harmonious energy here. And so this is also a good time for relationships. Also self-care, I would say, because this moon is getting closer and closer to that south node. It's about doing things that you enjoy and that can bring in pleasure and bring in joy here. And also, you know, we can see Juno here as well, right here. Right, so this definitely could be in regards to love and stuff, and stuff in that area here. All right, my friends, let's go to the next transit here. Now, here we go, the 17th, we have Venus squaring Jupiter. And again, I've already talked about this, you know, when I was just talking about it in the beginning of the video, then also when we went to the particular transit of when the new moon was happening. So it's basically the same thing that I was saying, you know, have realistic optimism, have realistic positivity, you know, don't overdo it. This is definitely probably going to make you want to overindulge, or to even overspend, or to overdo things, and you may regret it later. So just keep that in mind. This also can feel like, sometimes this can manifest though as like you don't feel like you're receiving the exact type of things to make you happy. And so, like I said, at the heart of disappointment is expectation. So I feel like it's important to manage expectation. All right, here we go here, 8:06 p.m. Central Time. We have the moon making a square to Pluto. And this is where, you know, this could be kind of volatile sometimes, you know. This is where we can be angry, or we can allow ourselves to get angry, you know, because we feel like there's maybe some unfair or things that are unfair, or some injustices, or we can feel like there's almost like a threat to our peace and our, you know, our peace and our and the balance to our lives. And so it's the best way to handle this transit is to like let go, right? To just let go and not allow yourself to, you know, do something that you may regret. Because anytime you have the moon square Pluto, it can be volatile, right? Pluto does represent, you know, like violence, but it's not on that big of a scale here, right? Like moon square Pluto is just like, we can feel fear. And so there's a need to kind of just like let go emotionally here and not allow yourself to get too attached to one emotion. indifference is like the best way to handle this transit. So it's like letting go, and this can show up as like power struggles in your relationships. So it's about letting go of this need and desire of wanting to have power, and not letting anybody else impose their power over you, right? So, all right. And last but not least, here on September 17th, we have the moon that'll be ingressing into Scorpio. And basically, this is at the very end of the day, 11:58 p.m. Central Time, basically the start, basically September 18th. And so the moon will come into Scorpio, and this is just going to be setting the tone here of deep desire, right? Moon in Scorpio is like this deep desire of wanting and you know, intense emotion. I have moon in Scorpio, so I know this energy very well. But this, you know, Scorpio is like this defiant energy, this very passionate energy, this very, you know, this willingness to I would say it's like this willingness to want to get something, to want to have something, to want to feel something. And I would love to talk more about this, but we're going to be doing that next week. And yeah, because this moon will be making a trine to Saturn, and it will be making a trine to Neptune, making a sextile to Pluto. It'll be making a sextile to Mercury, now direct, finally, so we can start to really emotionally engage ourselves into, you know, channeling this scorpionic energy into like using it for willpower, basically, and focus. So, but we'll talk about that next week. Otherwise than that, my friends, that is going to conclude this video. And I don't know how long this was, about 47 minutes. Perfect timing. I was actually wanting this video to kind of be under an hour because it takes fucking forever to upload. But nonetheless, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And if you find this video enjoyable, or if you got something out of it, be sure to leave a thumbs up, share it with somebody that you know may benefit from it. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you click the notification bell as well. You'll get notified whenever I upload a new video. And I do have a tarot channel. If you're stumbling across me and you're not from my tarot channel, I do have a tarot channel named Austin's Tarot. And so I do a lot of tarot readings too. So if you want a reading, you can go subscribe to the channel, or you can book a personal reading with me, whatever you want to do. And yeah, otherwise than that, my friends, that's going to conclude this video. Wishing you all a great week, and I will talk to you all later.